Alright, here is a quick tutorial on how to add a simple title to your project when you're working in Final Cut Express. Here's the standard layout for windows in Final Cut Express. When you're working with titles, you may want to work with larger size windows. So I will oftentimes head over to the window menu, ask for arrange, and switch to the compositing arrangement for windows as opposed to standard. So when you switch to compositing, you'll notice that now I have a bigger viewer and canvas window to choose from. Before I start to add the titles on, a quick mention about title safe areas. On television screens, if you put titles too close to the edge of the frame, some television screens will actually cut off your title at the edges. So a good idea before you start, click this little area here on the top of the viewer and canvas window and ask to show the title safe area. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see that. Title safe. Okay. That will ensure that your titles don't get cut off on screens. This was particularly important in old tube televisions. So try and keep your titles within this cyan line or box here. Okay, that'll ensure that you don't lose them. I'm going to do the same on the canvas window here and just show the title safe areas. Zoom back out. There are a couple different ways to add titles. Here's one of the easiest ones that I tend to use most often. From the viewer window, click on this little icon down here that actually has a small letter A in it for text. And if you click on that icon, this is also a spot where you can add in just a solid background of color if you needed to. That's called a matte. You can also add bars and tones, but we're going to be adding text in this case. There are different types of text that you can have. You can have crawling text, which is going to move up and down. You can add lower third text. That's effective sometimes in, say, electronic news gathering information, where you just want titles on the bottom of the screen. We can have outline or scrolling text. For right now, I'm just going to opt for standard text here, something very simple. So I'm going to click on text. And if we look now, this piece of sample text just showed up in the viewer window. Right? So this is a default line of text. And now I can come in and start to actually control that default text by clicking on the Controls tab up here. So there's the actual text that's here. If I wanted to add a title, perhaps I'm titling for one of your video assignments. So I might come up with something like it says medium close-up shot. And this is by Alex, we'll say. Okay. So that's the actual text that's going to show up. If you like, you can control all kinds of other features of the text, such as the font, the size of the text, the style of the text, whether it's bold, italic, alignment, so I'm going to keep it center aligned. We can also adjust the color of the font, and the origin point. This will adjust XY coordinates to reposition the text if you want it in a different spot on screen. Tracking is the amount of space in between the letters. Leading, often mispronounced, or pardon me, letting, often mispronounced as leading, is the amount of space in between the lines of type. Okay. I wouldn't do anything about changing the aspect ratio. That could end up squashing your type. So I've changed these parameters. If I come back to the video tab, I'll notice that my title has also changed correspondingly on screen. And now Final Cut will treat this just like another video clip that you'd have in the viewer. I have the option of picking a spot on my timeline and simply dragging the clip across, and I could insert that piece of type. And now it shows up down on my timeline as a video clip. If I click and play through it, you'll notice it's showing up on screen here. If I want to shorten the duration of it, I've got two different options. I could move the cursor near the edge of the clip and simply drag backward. If you have a specific duration in mind, let's say I wanted it exactly 5 seconds, I can right-click on the information on the timeline on the clip and ask and set a very specific duration if I wanted it exactly, for instance, 5 seconds. Now it's exactly 5 seconds. You may want to have your text fade in or fade out. Right now it's abruptly cutting in and cutting out. That's just a matter of adding a cross dissolve, or any transition will work on a text clip. So I can right click at the beginning of the clip and add a default cross dissolve at the beginning and at the end. And now if I play through my clip, you'll notice it fades in, and then as it reaches the end of the clip, it'll fade back out. If you want to add more than one title to your project, you can copy and paste clips in the timeline. So in this case, I'm going to copy the clip and I'm going to move ahead a little bit in the timeline and paste it in. If you want to change this type now, because it's doubtful you'd want to have exactly the same title, double click on it. Okay? And the title opens up in the viewer again. Just to prove that, I can come up here and change this from a medium close-up shot to, let's say, a long shot. And maybe this one was shot by David. And now you'll notice that the title has changed here. So back on my main timeline, I still have the medium close-up shot by Alex, but I also have another long shot by David. So again, that's simply double-clicking on the clip to open it up on the viewer window to be able to edit it or change it. If you want to move the title ahead, forward, or backward, simply drag it and move it in the timeline. And that is the simple method for adding titles in Final Cut Express.